The question is no longer whether machines can think, but whether humans still remember how. For 5 millennia, knowledge was the ultimate scarcity. Emperors built libraries to hoard it. Scholars guarded secrets as currency. Entire civilizations rose and fell based on who controlled information. Then, in a single generation, we inverted the equation. Knowledge became infinite. Wisdom became extinct. Today's paradox is brutal. We have more data than ever and less clarity than our grandparents had with a newspaper and a conscience. By 2025, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and their descendants don't just retrieve information, they synthesize arguments, generate code, diagnose diseases, and draft legal briefs with superhuman speed. A teenager with a smartphone now commands more analytical firepower than the entire Apollo program possessed. Yet we're not smarter. We're paralyzed by optionality. A 2024 Accenture study revealed something striking. While 89% of global executives use AI to inform decisions, only 27% trust those decisions without human interpretation. That 62-point chasm isn't a technology gap. It's a wisdom deficit. And it's widening with every algorithm we deploy. The 3 circles of intelligence. To navigate what's coming, we need to understand 3 concentric forms of knowing that define the landscape of modern leadership. First, there's computational intelligence, the mechanical ability to calculate, correlate, and predict. Machines have achieved near omniscience here, processing patterns across billions of data points in microseconds. This capability is now commoditized. Everyone has access to it. It no longer differentiates you. Second, emotional intelligence, the human ability to empathize, contextualize, and connect. This remains our territory, but only if we cultivate it intentionally. The uncomfortable truth is that most organizations are accidentally eroding this capacity through over-automation. We're outsourcing so much of our cognitive work that we're forgetting how to feel our way through complexity. Third and rarest, moral intelligence, the capacity to choose what is right when metrics conflict. This is where leadership either emerges or evaporates. It's the difference between optimization and wisdom, between efficiency and humanity. Here's the question that should keep every leader awake. Are we training the next generation in computational intelligence while starving them of moral intelligence? The evidence suggests yes. MBA programs still prioritize optimization over ethics, efficiency over empathy, and quarterly returns over generational responsibility. We're graduating brilliant tacticians who've never been forced to grapple with a genuine moral dilemma. When AI writes the code, diagnoses the patient, and drafts the contract, what remains uniquely human is the willingness to ask, should we? A neural network can detect a tumor with 99% accuracy. It cannot hold the hand of the person receiving the news. That asymmetry defines the future of work and the future of leadership. The corporate theater of intelligence. Walk into any Fortune 500 boardroom today and witness the grand illusion. Walls of screens display real-time KPIs, predictive churn models, and color-coded risk matrices. The room feels intelligent because the technology looks intelligent. But intelligence is not illumination, it's instrumentation. And we've confused the two. MIT Sloan's 2025 survey of 400 major corporations revealed a damning split. 92% reported increased decision speed, but only 18% saw improved decision quality. Translation: we're making bad decisions faster than ever before. We've installed analytics without evolving our ethical operating systems. We've optimized for the measurable while ignoring the meaningful. Consider the European energy conglomerate that deployed an algorithm to optimize fuel distribution during a shortage. The model maximized profit margins brilliantly, until journalists discovered it had deprioritized hospitals in low-income districts. The algorithm did exactly what we told it to, one executive admitted, not what we meant. This wasn't a technical failure. It was a moral vacancy. Intent remains a language only humans speak. Purpose is a variable machines cannot compute. What if most AI implementations are actually making organizations dumber? It's a provocative question, but the evidence is mounting. We're so focused on speed and efficiency that we've stopped asking whether we're moving in the right direction. When wisdom becomes infrastructure, wisdom doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It operates like an invisible protocol, slow, silent, foundational. It doesn't compete with speed, it stabilizes it. When IBM Watson Health embedded a human ethics gate into its oncology recommendations, cycle time increased by 15%. Executives panicked. Then misdiagnoses dropped 34% and patient trust soared. That 15% slowdown became a 40% market share advantage. Speed without conscience loses to deliberate discernment every single time. At a global logistics firm, any algorithmic decision exceeding $10 million triggers what they call a wisdom loop, a mandatory cross-functional review where operations, HR, and ethics officers ask 3 deceptively simple questions. What does the model optimize? Who could be harmed? What story will this decision tell about who we are? It adds hours to the process. It has prevented 3 potential scandals, saved 2 major partnerships, and become the company's most cited competitive advantage in talent acquisition. Wisdom, it turns out, is not the opposite of efficiency. It's the insurance policy that keeps efficiency from becoming cruelty. What's the ROI of saying no when the data says yes? That's a question more leaders need to ask. Because sometimes the most strategic decision is the one that resists optimization. Every algorithm is a mirror. We persist in treating AI as objective arbiters, rational, bias-free, coldly logical. This is our most dangerous delusion. Every algorithm inherits its creator's context. Data reflect bias. Parameters encode priorities. The Stanford AI Index analysis of 100 major models in 2024 found measurable gender or racial skew in 93 of them. Bias isn't the bug. It's the blueprint. When Amazon's warehouse algorithm began penalizing bathroom breaks, it wasn't malfunctioning. It was executing a value baked into its objective function: throughput above humanity. Culture had crystallized into code. And no one questioned the code until journalists exposed the human cost. If your AI system is racist, sexist, or classist, what does that say about your leadership? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's the right one. Algorithms are X-rays for hypocrisy. They expose the gap between what we say we value and what we actually reward. The wisest organizations now mandate interpretability. Any model affecting hiring, lending, promotion, or resource allocation must be explainable in plain language to a non-technical audience. If you can't justify it to your grandmother, you can't deploy it to your workforce. This isn't altruism. It's risk management. Opacity breeds scandal. Transparency builds trust. And trust, as we'll see, is becoming the ultimate currency. Educating for augmented judgment. The industrial age trained managers to memorize procedures. The digital age trained them to optimize processes. The intelligent age must train them to philosophize under pressure. Courses in ethics, cognitive bias, and systems thinking aren't electives anymore. They're survival skills. Oxford's Said Business School now requires all MBA candidates to pass Ethics of Algorithms and AI before graduation, not as a gesture toward virtue, but as a survival prerequisite. Microsoft runs moral sprint workshops where teams redesign policies for fairness rather than throughput. Unilever embeds ethicists in product development cycles. Should boards of directors be required to have at least one philosopher or ethicist among them? Consider the alternative, a world where every major institution is run by people trained exclusively in optimization, never in contemplation. We'd have brilliant tacticians with no conception of the why beneath the how. We'd build systems that maximize efficiency while eroding meaning. Philosophy is no longer impractical, it's strategic. The humanities are returning to power because what once seemed soft now feels necessary. Google DeepMind recently hired philosophers to consult on AI alignment. The Vatican convened scientists to draft ethics frameworks. MIT found that cross-training engineers in ethics and storytelling improved product design satisfaction by 23%. Moral reasoning has become a supply chain issue. Literature builds empathy. Empathy reduces error. History reveals patterns. Patterns prevent disasters. Human differentiation in the algorithm. Age. As automation spreads, human differentiation collapses into the space between data and decision. That space is judgment, an alchemy of empathy, experience, and ethics that no machine can synthesize. A leader's advantage is no longer predicting the future faster. It's interpreting it more responsibly. What decisions are you still making yourself that you've been tempted to outsource to an algorithm? If you can't name any, you're not leading, you're following. When the pandemic forced remote work, AI scheduling tools optimized productivity ruthlessly and accidentally erased serendipity. The unplanned hallway conversation. The spontaneous brainstorming session. The mentorship that happens over coffee, not Calendly. Companies that noticed this loss rebuilt randomness intentionally. Virtual coffee roulettes, rotational mentoring programs, digital open-door hours with no agenda. Their innovation scores rebounded 19%. Empathy became an economic asset, not a liability. Organizations that preserve human texture inside automated workflows outperform those that optimize texture away. This pattern holds across industries. The most successful companies aren't the ones that automate everything. They're the ones that deliberately preserve spaces for human connection. The cognitive displacement crisis. A century ago, industrialization replaced muscle with motors. Today, automation replaces cognition with computation. The result isn't unemployment, it's something more insidious: cognitive atrophy. By 2025, the World Economic Forum estimated that 44% of white-collar work activities involve machine-assisted cognition. People spend half their day verifying what algorithms already decided. Instead of thinking, they're auditing thought. Neuroscientist Dr. Anna Lemke calls this learned incompetence. When we delegate pattern recognition long enough, intuition forgets how to recognize patterns independently. The cost isn't efficiency. It's imagination itself. University of Chicago researchers found that participants using AI to summarize research papers answered factual questions faster, but scored 40% lower on conceptual reasoning. The machine explained everything. The mind stopped connecting dots. We're training a generation to consume insight rather than generate it. And that's a civilizational liability. If AI predicts everything, will humans lose the capacity to imagine anything? Early evidence is troubling. We need to preserve the mental muscles that generate creativity, that make unexpected connections, that ask questions no algorithm would think to pose. When measurement replaces presence. Leadership used to be emotional labor, sensing morale, noticing fatigue, mediating conflict. Now, dashboards perform sentiment analysis with 87% accuracy, and HR platforms predict disengagement before employees realize they're disengaged. Paradoxically, the more we measure feelings, the less we feel them. A global insurance firm implemented AI-driven pulse surveys every Friday. Engagement scores rose. Actual engagement collapsed. Employees later confessed that constant monitoring felt like surveillance cosplaying as care. One wrote, "They don't need to ask how I feel. The algorithm already knows." Can empathy exist without presence? Empathy without embodiment becomes extraction. Technology can read emotion. It cannot carry it. Compassion still requires a human nervous system, one capable of discomfort, of being moved, of changing because of what it witnesses. You cannot delegate care to a dashboard. This is perhaps the most important lesson of the intelligent age. Metrics can inform compassion, but they cannot replace it. The leader who only knows their team through data has already lost them. The isolation built into efficiency, automation promised liberation from tedium. Instead, it risks isolation by design. Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index revealed that cross-functional meetings dropped 32% after AI scheduling assistants optimized calendars. Collaboration decreased because coordination became too convenient. What if the greatest threat to innovation isn't inefficiency, but frictionlessness? Connection requires resistance. The bump of scheduling conflicts. The negotiation of time. The hesitation before replying. The silence that invites reflection. As organizations eliminate friction, they eliminate the conditions for creativity and friendship. Wise leaders re-engineer encounter, walking one-on-ones, cross-team salons, story-sharing circles. These aren't perks. They're prophylactics against algorithmic alienation. They're deliberate inefficiencies that preserve the texture of human collaboration. Synthetic wisdom and its limits. AI researchers now speak of synthetic wisdom. Systems trained not merely on facts, but on philosophies. Aristotle's ethics, Confucian analects, recorded judicial deliberations. Early prototypes can cite Kant and Rawls in the same breath, contextualizing moral arguments with eerie sophistication. But imitation is not incarnation. When an AI recommends mercy in sentencing, it doesn't feel mercy. It performs probability. Wisdom requires emotion plus experience plus ethics. Remove any variable and you get simulation, not soul. Can wisdom exist without suffering? Every great moral teacher, Buddha, Socrates, King, Mandela, earned their insights through lived experience, often pain. Wisdom isn't downloaded, it's forged. Still, synthetic wisdom has utility. Used properly, it acts as conscience scaffolding, a second opinion that reminds humans of forgotten principles. The danger is dependency, mistaking reflection support for moral outsourcing. We need AI as a mirror, not a replacement. It should surface our contradictions, not resolve them for us. The rise of moral capital companies have long measured social capital, intellectual capital, brand equity. The next frontier is moral capital, stored trust that allows organizations to operate at scale without constant surveillance. Moral capital compounds. Each fair decision adds to the ledger. Each transparent communication builds balance. Each courageous stand increases capacity. And it depletes just as predictably. Each cover-up withdraws trust. Each manipulative tactic erodes goodwill. Each opaque algorithm breeds suspicion. Edelman's 2024 Trust Barometer revealed that 63% of consumers choose brands based on belief alignment, not price. Among Gen Z, that number rises to 81%. Trust isn't marketing, it's infrastructure. In the intelligent age, ethics is strategy. AI accelerates reputation cycles. Moral failures surface in hours, not months. Leaders can't hide behind PR when their systems act unjustly. What is your organization's moral capital, and are you investing or liquidating it? Progressive organizations are beginning to quantify integrity. Patagonia tracks ethical decision latency, the time it takes employees to raise moral concerns. Microsoft publishes annual fairness scorecards. Salesforce measures stakeholder impact alongside shareholder returns. But here's the trap. When morality becomes math, context evaporates. Can you A/B test your way to virtue? The most human companies use metrics as mirrors, not mandates. They ask why before counting how much. They treat data as evidence, not verdict. Use metrics as diagnostics, not destinations. Leadership as translation work. In this accelerated age, leaders have two essential jobs: translate technology for people and translate people for technology. They are interpreters across a widening chasm. One side speaks in logic and probabilities. The other speaks in longing and meaning. True leadership requires fluency in both. Are you managing technology, or is technology managing you? The difference is subtle but total. Managing means setting boundaries, asking hard questions, overriding recommendations when values are at stake. Being managed means accepting outputs uncritically, chasing metrics without interrogating their meaning. Most leaders believe they're in the first category. Most are in the second. At an Asia-Pacific logistics giant, executives undergo AI empathy training, practicing how to read algorithmic reports for tone, learning when to intervene humanly rather than digitally. The program cut attrition 17% in 1 year. Interpretation became strategy. When managers learned to see the human story behind the data, they made better decisions. The courage to be slow. Perhaps wisdom's rarest trait is patience, the willingness to resist velocity when discernment demands it. AI compresses decision cycles from months to milliseconds. The temptation is to keep pace. But wisdom is often the courage not to. Toyota's Andon Cord allows any worker to halt an entire production line for a quality concern. In the intelligent age, we need digital Andon cords, protocols empowering humans to pause algorithms when something feels wrong, even before data confirm it. What if the best decision a leader can make is to decide nothing, yet? Speed minus conscience equals scandal. Every major corporate crisis of the past decade traces back to the same pathology, moving too fast to notice what was being broken. Theranos, Cambridge Analytica, FTX, Boeing 737 MAX. Each disaster had a moment when someone could have pulled the Andon cord, if the culture had valued wisdom over velocity. The intelligent organization builds deliberation into urgency. It doesn't slow everything down. It slows the right things down. It creates space between stimulus and response where judgment can operate. Why conscious companies? When organizations that honor wisdom outperform those that worship efficiency. McKinsey's 2024 meta-analysis of 120 AI transformations found that firms embedding ethical governance frameworks enjoyed 20% higher ROI than those chasing automation alone. Trust compounds like interest. What is the long-term return on refusing a profitable but unethical opportunity? Patagonia turned down lucrative partnerships inconsistent with its environmental mission and became one of the most valuable outdoor brands on Earth. Apple's privacy stance costs them billions in ad revenue annually and is now their strongest competitive moat. REI closing on Black Friday was mocked as naive until customer loyalty surged. The pattern is clear. Values-driven decisions create durable advantages that opportunism cannot replicate. Conscience is strategy, not constraint. The new competitive edge isn't cognitive capacity. It's conscious calibration, knowing when to lean on the machine and when to lead beyond it. Research by EY in 2025 found that companies ranked highest in trust, transparency, and stakeholder ethics outperformed the S&P 500 by 42% over 5 years. Wisdom drives loyalty, innovation, and sustainability, the three compounding levers of long-term value.